I never imagined I'd be standing in a courtroom facing the man who once promised to love and protect me, suing me for alimony. But before all that, before the betrayal, before the lies, before the legal papers and sleepless nights, there was us. Ethan and I met during our senior year at university. He was magnetic, smart, ambitious, full of charm and big dreams. I was drawn in quickly like most people were. He had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. We started dating fast. Within a year of graduation we were married. Our early years were full of promise. Ethan got hired at a mid-sized marketing firm and rose quickly through the ranks. He worked long hours, took on every project, and within 5 years was leading his own department. I was proud of him. I cheered him on, supported him in every way I could. When we moved across the state for his promotion, I gave up my job, an up-and-coming role at a design studio, to relocate with him. It was supposed to be temporary. Once we're settled, he said, you'll get back into it. But life had other plans. The new city was more competitive than we expected, and I spent the first few months helping us get established. Organizing our home, managing our finances, handling the transition. My career took a backseat. Eventually, I started freelancing, picking up clients here and there, building slowly. Still, I never resented him. I believed in partnership. I believed we were a team. I thought we were happy. But in the final year of our marriage, Ethan started to drift. He became distracted, irritable, and emotionally distant. Work was stressful. He stayed late often. His phone was suddenly locked. He became obsessed with his appearance. New cologne, new suits, a gym membership he actually used. I asked questions. He brushed them off. You're imagining things, he said more than once. Don't be paranoid. And I wanted to believe him. I really did. But everything changed the morning I borrowed his laptop. It wasn't intentional. Mine had crashed mid-email and he'd left his open on the kitchen table. I clicked the browser and there it was, a tab still open to his text messages. The first message read, "Last night was amazing. Still thinking about you." My stomach dropped. The contact name was Eric Work, but the heart emoji at the end of the text made no sense. My hands trembling, I scrolled through the conversation. The truth hit me like ice water. It wasn't Eric. It was Elise, his 25-year-old secretary. The flirty texts. The photos. The hotel reservations. The nights he worked late. It all made sense. I sat there in our kitchen, the morning light pouring in like nothing had changed, and realized that everything had. My husband had been cheating on me. For months. With someone half my age who called him E. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just closed the laptop, packed a bag, and left. And that was just the beginning. Confronting Ethan didn't go the way I thought it would. There was no denial. No attempt to hide. No apology. When I returned later that evening, after hours of walking aimlessly through the park, trying to process what I'd seen, I expected him to at least pretend to be shocked or remorseful or something. Instead, he looked up from the couch where he was sipping a glass of red wine and watching a documentary and said, "So you found out." Just like that. Not a question. A confirmation. I stood frozen in the doorway, keys still in my hand. "You knew I'd see it?" He shrugged. "Eventually. I wasn't trying to hide it anymore." My heart thudded loudly in my ears. I closed the door behind me, slow and stiff. "So, that's it? You've just been sleeping with her and hoping I wouldn't notice." He exhaled like he was tired of the conversation already. "Hannah, we haven't been us in a long time." "You stepped away, Ethan. You changed," I said, my voice cracking. "I stood by you through everything. I gave up my job so you could grow yours. I followed you around the country like a ghost." "You made those choices," he said sharply. "I didn't force you." That hurt more than anything. The rewriting of our history. The cold detachment in his voice. "So this is my fault now?" I said quietly. "I'm not saying that," he replied, standing now. "I'm saying I grew. We grew apart. I found something new, something exciting. I wasn't going to live the rest of my life in a dying marriage just because it was safe." "Elise is 25, I spat. "You're her boss." "She makes me feel alive," he said, as if that somehow justified it all. "She listens to me. She looks at me like I matter." "And I didn't?" I asked, incredulous. He didn't answer. The silence was brutal. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I didn't cry in front of him. I just walked into our bedroom, took out my overnight bag and calmly packed it. Toiletries. A few outfits. My laptop. My favorite hoodie. He followed me to the door but didn't try to stop me. "Where are you going?" he asked. "Somewhere where I can remember who I was before you convinced me I wasn't enough." That night, I slept at my sister's apartment. The next day, I called a divorce attorney. By the end of the week, the papers were in motion. Ethan didn't fight the divorce at first. In fact, he seemed relieved. Like I had made the choice for him. He got to move in with Elise, live his fresh start, and act like the last 7 years of our life had been some kind of mistake. And through it all, I kept my head high. I didn't ask for alimony. I didn't take revenge. I just wanted a clean break. To move on with dignity. But I should have known. Men like Ethan don't like it when women walk away stronger. They find a way to come back. And 6 months later he did, holding a lawsuit in his hand demanding that I pay him. The envelope came on a gray Tuesday morning. I was just getting back from a design consult with a new client. Things had been picking up again in my freelance business, and for the first time in over a year I actually felt hopeful. The apartment smelled like fresh coffee and eucalyptus from a candle I had burning on the windowsill. Life was finally feeling like mine again. Then I saw it. A thick, official-looking envelope with my name typed across the front. The return address was from a local law firm. At first, I assumed it was a leftover piece of paperwork from the divorce. Some formality we'd missed. But as I sat down at my kitchen table and slid my finger under the seal, my chest tightened. Something felt off. Inside was a petition. Ethan was suing me, for alimony. I stared at the words like they were written in a foreign language. I blinked, reread the line, then read it again just to be sure. Petitioner, Ethan Wallace. Respondent, Hannah Wallace, formerly. Claim, petition for spousal support. I dropped the paper onto the table, my heart racing. My hands were shaking. This had to be a joke. I picked up my phone and called my lawyer, David, immediately. "Tell me this isn't real," I said the moment he picked up. A long sigh on the other end. "I got the same documents this morning. It's real. But I didn't ask for anything in the divorce. I let him go. Why would he?" "He's claiming financial hardship," David said. "Loss of income, instability, emotional distress post-divorce. He's trying to build a case that you're now in a stronger financial position, and he's entitled to support." I was speechless. For a moment I just sat there in silence, staring out the window, mind reeling. "I make barely enough to pay rent and build my business," I finally said. "He was the one with the 6-figure job. He cheated. He left. He's living with her." "I know," David replied calmly. "But none of that stops him from filing. He has the right to petition. It doesn't mean he'll win." "But why now?" I asked, voice breaking. "Why now?" "He left his job a few months ago," David said. "Apparently the affair became office gossip and things got uncomfortable. He resigned. Claims he can't find steady work. Because he burned his own career down," I snapped. "Agreed. But he's painting it differently in his filing, blaming workplace retaliation, the psychological strain of the divorce, claiming he's emotionally unfit to work full-time. And, this part is important, he says you've recovered financially while he hasn't." I laughed bitterly. "He thinks I've recovered because I post a couple of nice photos on Instagram?" David sighed again. "It doesn't take much to present a version of the truth that favors his side. But the good news is, facts matter in court. And we have plenty." I hung up and just sat there for a long time. The gall. The absolute nerve of him. He had cheated. He had left. And now, because I had survived without him, he wanted to be paid? That's what this was really about. Not money. Control. He couldn't stand the fact that I hadn't crumbled without him. That I'd gotten up, rebuilt my life and never once looked back. Now he wanted to drag me through court again because it was the only power he had left. But this time I wasn't the same woman who had walked away quietly. This time I was ready to fight. I spent the next few weeks gathering every piece of evidence I could. Every invoice I'd sent out for freelance work, every financial statement, every tax return, bank transaction, and proof of income since the divorce. My dining table was buried under folders, spreadsheets, and labeled envelopes. My lawyer, David, was meticulous. He treated Ethan's petition like a chess match, and we weren't just playing defense. We were preparing to strike. This isn't just about showing that you don't owe him, he told me during one of our prep meetings. It's about proving that he's trying to profit from a situation he created. And that his financial hardship? Entirely self-inflicted. We worked through it line by line. First, the timeline. I had supported Ethan during our marriage. Financially, emotionally, practically. When he was in between jobs 2 years ago, it was my income that kept us afloat. I'd put my own career on hold to move twice for his promotions. There were bank transfers, rent receipts, credit card statements, all showing my consistent contributions. Then the infidelity. David advised me to be cautious here. Affairs don't always impact spousal support rulings unless there's financial misconduct. But we had proof that Ethan had used our joint account to pay for hotel stays with Elise. Dinners. A weekend trip to Miami. Even a spa day. That qualifies as marital dissipation, David explained. Spending joint funds on a third-party relationship. Courts take that seriously. We printed it all. Highlighted everything. Even included screenshots of his Instagram posts with Elise, laughing by the pool, champagne in hand, during the exact week he claimed he was suffering from emotional hardship. But the most damning part? The resignation letter. Through a mutual acquaintance still working at Ethan's firm, I learned he hadn't been forced to quit. There was no harassment or retaliation. He left on his own, after HR issued a formal warning about inappropriate conduct with a subordinate. David managed to get a statement from that same acquaintance, anonymously, confirming the timeline. Ethan hadn't been pushed out. He'd been caught. I remember staring at the binder David put together with all our evidence. It was thick. Over 200 pages. This wasn't just about defending myself anymore. It was about justice. The court date was set for mid-May. I had a month to prepare. I worked during the day, reviewed documents at night. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ethan's smug face in that courtroom, pretending to be a victim. But I also saw myself standing there. Not as the woman he cheated on. Not as the ex-wife he discarded like a finished chapter. But as the woman he underestimated. I bought a new black suit. Nothing flashy, simple, strong. A symbol. Because I wasn't going into that courtroom to defend my money. I was going to defend my dignity. And this time I was ready. The day of the hearing arrived with a strange stillness. It was early May, cool and overcast, the kind of morning where the sky feels heavy but quiet, as if holding its breath. I woke up before my alarm, nerves already churning, but I wasn't afraid. Not really. Not anymore. I'd spent the last month preparing. I'd relived every painful moment of my marriage, examined every dollar that passed between us, dissected my own life just to prove I didn't owe the man who betrayed me a cent. I wasn't just ready, I was resolved. I got dressed slowly. A tailored black suit. Low heels. Minimal makeup. Hair pulled back in a clean, no-nonsense bun. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see the woman Ethan walked out on. I saw someone who had walked through fire and come out steel. David picked me up on the way to the courthouse. He didn't ask if I was okay. He knew I didn't need the question. "You look like someone who's about to win," he said, glancing at me with a small smile. I didn't answer. I just nodded. We arrived 10 minutes early. Ethan was already there. He sat alone at the other side of the courtroom, hunched slightly, wearing a suit that looked too big for him. Intentional, I was sure. His beard was overgrown, his hair slightly disheveled. He looked like he was trying to play the part of a broken man. I wondered if Elise helped him choose the look. He didn't meet my eyes when I walked in. David and I took our place at the respondents' table, setting down our folders with quiet precision. The courtroom itself was small, sterile. Pale wood, dull lighting, the scent of paper and tension in the air. The judge entered, a middle-aged woman with a sharp gaze and clipped tone. She didn't waste time. We were sworn in. Then Ethan's lawyer began. She painted a picture of a man left behind. A man who gave everything to his marriage and was emotionally destroyed by the sudden breakdown. She claimed he had been unable to recover financially or psychologically. That I had risen to a comfortable and thriving position post-divorce, while Ethan was still rebuilding. I clenched my jaw. Then Ethan spoke. He used the same tired language. Emotional trauma, toxic divorce, difficulty re-entering the workforce. He looked down a lot. Paused for dramatic effect. Talked about how hard it was to see his ex-wife living a stable, happy life while he struggled. He even let his voice crack once. For a second I wondered if the judge might actually believe him. But then David stood. And everything changed. He started slow, methodical. A timeline. A breakdown of my financial support during the marriage. Years of records showing my contributions. Rent, utilities, groceries, even debt payments I'd taken on when Ethan was out of work. Tax records. Bank transfers. A picture of a woman who had sacrificed stability for love, and had received betrayal in return. Then came the affair. The judge didn't flinch when we presented the texts and hotel receipts. But when David showed the joint account charges used for romantic getaways with Elise while we were still married, her expression hardened. Marital dissipation, David said. Clear as day. Then the Instagram post. Ethan on a yacht. Champagne. Poolside with Elise. David let them linger on the screen a moment too long. Then the resignation letter. The petitioner claims he was forced out of his role due to psychological strain, David said, but in reality he resigned following an internal investigation related to misconduct with a subordinate, his now cohabitating girlfriend, Elise Lang. Silence. David delivered the closing with calm fire. Your Honor, this isn't about hardship. This is about entitlement. About punishing a woman for moving on, healing and thriving without the man who betrayed her. Ms. Reed doesn't owe him support. She owes herself protection. The judge looked at Ethan. Anything further? She asked. He opened his mouth. Then closed it. I didn't look away. Because for the first time in our entire relationship he was the one without power. And I was just getting started. The judge didn't make us wait long. After both sides had spoken, she took a short recess to review the evidence. I sat quietly at the respondent's table, my hands folded in my lap, my heart pounding, not out of fear, but from the sheer weight of everything leading to this moment. It wasn't just about money. It was about the years I'd spent shrinking myself to support Ethan. About the silent sacrifices, the twisted guilt, the months of gaslighting, and the insult of him demanding alimony after he had broken our marriage. David sat beside me quietly scanning his notes, but I knew he was as ready as I was. When the judge returned, the room fell silent. She adjusted her glasses, looked down at the stack of documents in front of her, then directly at Ethan. Mr. Wallace, she began, I've reviewed your petition for spousal support as well as the supporting materials submitted by both parties. Ethan sat up straighter, his expression carefully crafted to look vulnerable, like a man hoping to be rescued. The judge continued. While the court does consider financial imbalance and post-divorce circumstances, it also considers the context that led to the dissolution of the marriage. She turned a page. In this case, the court finds credible evidence of marital misconduct, including the dissipation of marital assets. There is substantial proof that the petitioner voluntarily left a high-paying job after engaging in an inappropriate relationship with a subordinate. I could feel Ethan stiffen beside his attorney. The judge didn't stop. Furthermore, the court finds no compelling evidence of sustained financial hardship, nor any documented effort by the petitioner to regain employment despite being able-bodied and educated. The respondent, on the other hand, has demonstrated clear financial independence and has no obligation to subsidize the petitioner's current lifestyle. My pulse thundered in my ears. Therefore, she said, her voice firm, final, the petition for alimony is denied. Just like that. 6 words. But they shattered the months of anxiety, the injustice, the fear that somehow the system would let him win again. I blinked, swallowing the lump in my throat. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I just breathed. Deeply. Fully. David leaned in. That's it, he said softly. It's over. Across the room, Ethan sat frozen. He didn't look at me. Didn't speak. His lawyer whispered something to him, but he didn't respond. I stood slowly, gathering my things, my fingers steady for the first time in weeks. As I walked out of the courtroom, I passed by Ethan. For a brief second, our eyes met. His were full of disbelief. Clear. Certain. Unapologetic. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. Because in that moment we both knew. He had finally lost. And I had finally won. Not just in court, but in every way that mattered. The days after the hearing felt strangely quiet. No courtroom dates looming. No meetings with David. No late-night anxiety spirals over legal documents. Just silence. Peaceful, unfamiliar silence. At first I didn't know what to do with it. 4 months I'd been living in fight-or-flight mode, running on adrenaline and spite. My calendar was full of deadlines, strategy calls, and lists titled things like, "Prove I don't owe him a dime." Now the war was over. I had won. But what comes after victory? First I cleaned. Obsessively. I scrubbed my apartment top to bottom like I was purging the last of Ethan's shadow from my life. I even got rid of the last few items that had belonged to our old life together. A cast iron skillet we'd bought on vacation, a vase from our wedding registry, a throw blanket he always used. Into a donation box they went. Not because I needed to forget, but because I no longer needed to hold on. Then slowly life resumed. My business began to grow, steadier, more fulfilling than it had ever been. Clients referred me to other clients. I stopped saying yes to every project out of fear and started choosing the ones that sparked something in me. I created boundaries, structure, pride. The thing about being betrayed by someone you trusted is that it forces you to rebuild yourself deliberately, carefully, from the inside out. I wasn't just healing, I was transforming. One afternoon, about 3 weeks after the ruling, I was walking home from a client meeting when I bumped into someone I hadn't seen in over a year. Lauren, a mutual friend who had quietly distanced herself after the divorce. She hesitated before smiling. "Hannah," she said, unsure. I nodded. "Hi." We made small talk. She mentioned seeing something about the court case. "People talk," she said gently, but then added, "I just wanted to say, I'm really proud of you." That took me by surprise. "You stood your ground," she said. "A lot of women wouldn't have. You made him face consequences." I smiled. It was small but real. "Thank you." Later that night I thought about her words. You made him face consequences. It was more than that. I had made myself visible again. For so long I had disappeared inside that marriage. Compromising, supporting, shrinking. And even after it ended, I almost allowed him to keep pulling strings in my life. But not anymore. I wasn't just a woman who survived being cheated on. Or a woman who escaped a toxic relationship. I was a woman who stood up in a system not built to protect her, told the truth and walked away clean. And more importantly, I did it without becoming bitter. I didn't need revenge. I had something better. Myself. Whole. Free. Unashamed. And for the first time in years I looked forward, not backward. A year has passed since I walked out of that courtroom with my head held high and my dignity intact. 12 months. That may not sound like much, but when you've had to rebuild your entire life, emotionally, financially, personally, it feels like a lifetime. In that time, I've shed the version of myself who used to compromise to keep someone else comfortable. I've stopped apologizing for being strong, for being ambitious, for drawing lines and not letting people cross them. I'm not angry anymore. Not at Ethan. Not even at Elise. What they did, what he did, was unforgivable, yes. But holding on to that anger felt like continuing to pay a debt for something I never owed. So I let it go. Not for them, for me. My business has flourished. I work with people who respect me, who pay me what I'm worth, who don't try to undercut me or control me. I set my own hours, take weekends off when I want, and travel to cities I used to dream about but always put off for later. There is no later anymore. There's only now. I moved into a new apartment, a space that is completely mine. Every piece of furniture, every painting, every pillow has a story I chose. There are no ghosts in the closet, no tension in the air. Just peace. Warm lived-in peace. I've also started dating again. Carefully. Fully. I'm not looking for someone to complete me. I'm already whole. I'm not chasing fairy tales. I'm building something real. One honest conversation at a time. And then there's the final full circle moment. A few months ago Ethan emailed me. No subject line. Just one short paragraph. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. You didn't deserve how I treated you. I hope you're doing well. I stared at the screen for a long time. Not because I was tempted to reply, but because I realized something. I didn't need the apology. I had already healed without it. So I archived the message, closed my laptop, and went back to what I was doing. Booking a trip to Lisbon for a summer design conference. Because my life is no longer defined by who hurt me. It's defined by how I reclaimed it. And if I could go back in time and tell the version of me who had just discovered that awful text message on Ethan's laptop one thing, it would be this. You are about to go through hell. But on the other side, there is freedom. There is clarity. There is power. And most of all, there is peace. Not because someone gave it to you, but because you earned it.